It is a big day across households in Australia. We begin with the seismic shift for Australia's youth today as the long-awaited social media ban officially begins. Millions of teens now cut off from their favourite platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Snapchat.
Welcome back to another episode of Australia. They stole this land and they didn't even know how to run it. Give it back? Well, in this episode, I've once again sat myself down in front of my webcam to diatribe. This time we have two webcams.
Coverage on this World First initiative at
World First. They call this a World First, but really it should be called a first draft. Every letter to the government from stakeholders on this list of submissions on the inquiry says a variation of, the consultation period was too short. This legislation was clearly the first idea someone had in a room for how to regulate social media. Not enough tests were done on either the sociological impact or how close we were to having accurate age recognition software, as evident by the fact that the technology this ban is predicated on is already failing and kids are getting through. The crux of my thesis here is that this is a bad idea that makes things worse and doesn't work. And the fact that it doesn't really work and is largely ineffective doesn't stop it from spewing forth a bunch of secondary problems. The World First social media regulation doesn't actually regulate any social media. It just tries to stop people from going on it because that would be the least difficult legislation to write. Social media regulation is needed. I've been saying this for years now, but this isn't regulating social media, it's regulating access. This is evident in its many problems. The time between one woman who doesn't work in government or sociology telling her husband to pass it on her behalf because she read a book about mental illness being caused by smartphones in 2024, and the ban being passed in 2025 means there was no time for anybody to ask pressing questions or really get to challenge it properly. On May 5th of 2025, they put out a consultation requests for experts, not to give their opinion on whether it was a good idea, but for how they could do it when they get around to passing it. It was pushed. Nobody in the room where it happened seemed to have had the time to ask or even think, what happens when someone starts a new social media? These lists, that being the list of banned social media, reflect eSafety's views as at, that doesn't seem grammatical, but okay, 21 November 2025. There are no further assessments planned in the lead-up to the social media minimum age obligation coming into effect 10 December 2025. Blue Sky is so new, they forgot about it entirely. It's not on the eSafety website, but Blue Sky did choose to implement the ban on their own accord without being asked, probably so they could prevent future regulation. What happens when someone makes new social media that's not explicitly branded as such? Do we have to argue about whether a bunch of teens using MySpace counts as a new social media? I mean, what happens when 15-year-old users start congregating on MySpace? The issues it's supposed to stop, amongst some others I'll get into later, are online grooming, internet addiction, online radicalisation, and bullying. So let's go into those one by one. Does a social media ban protect children from grooming and predators? No, not really. Amnesty International says a ban simply means they will continue to be exposed to the same harms, but in secret, leaving them at even greater risk. The textbook example of grooming starts with, "I'm your only true friend, this is our little secret." A 15-year-old, or God forbid lower, is going to experiment with social media, perhaps start a friendship with someone older, and not notice the signs of grooming because they weren't taught it in school. They're not going to tell their parents or teachers or maybe even friends about their new secret online friend because they will get in trouble. They're committing a crime. They're not allowed to be on social media. They're going to keep it secret. When they do realize they're being groomed, if they even do, or even if they don't but feel their friend is being uncomfortable around them, they can't talk to their parents or their school counselor because they'll be in huge trouble or worse. Even if not actually true, that's how it'll be perceived. That's one way this bill is ineffective at stopping kids going on social media, but isn't actually negating its problems. And I'm sorry, but kids are just going to go on social media. Even if this was an actually effective technology in stopping them, which it isn't, it's just an inevitability. What we need to do is make sure confiding in someone about abuse that they may be going through, even if they're not, is non-punitive. It only benefits. Yet this whole 16 ban is creating the opposite of a panopticon, a blind spot for the most vulnerable. And for what? All of that to not even solve the problem? With Roblox on the guaranteed unbanned list and WhatsApp fully available as an off-platform space to groom Roblox kids, it doesn't even stop one of the most well-known grooming pipelines. This is going to be upsetting if you're not familiar, but child abuse isn't done by the strangers you were taught to worry about in school, not by men in alleys. While online grooming does directly lead to child abuse, though they are different terms, don't get them confused, the majority of child abuse doesn't come from grooming. It comes from parents, family, friends, babysitters, teachers, principals, religious leaders, camp guides. I've not been groomed online, maybe I'm just too good of a Discord kitten, but I'll let you guess what my family and teachers did to me. For someone in a real-life abusive situation, the internet provides information, avenues of escape, and a place to ask questions. While you can still Google things and maybe find pages about identifying and escaping abuse by chance, if you've been raised to think that it's normal from birth, you're not going to be Googling that. And Googling random phrases isn't going to help you find out about your own human rights when you've been taught to never ask what they are. Social media and internet friends and connections offer a place to vent feelings. Others can help you identify if what you're going through maybe isn't right. It can point you to what to Google. This video about internet safety isn't going to be available on YouTube Kids. For people who do know they're being abused, social media provides an avenue of escape, a lack of tracking, communication, or even just staying in touch while in a bad situation. When the under 16 ban makes a full legal adult provide their ID to a third-party company, and that third party has a routine data breach, like these fucking things are always doing, who knows if that person's shitty stalker ex is going to use that data to harass them all over again. Now, worse than before, because unlike pseudonyms, usernames, and fandom spaces, the future of social media means your ID tied to your online identity. For escaped victims of abuse, current victims of child abuse, and future victims of online predation, the under 16 ban unilaterally makes lives worse and more dangerous. Does a social media ban protect people from addiction? The big problem with social media that most needs regulating to me is addiction and dopamine farming. Addictive reels, infinite scrolling, dark patterns, data harvesting, micro-content. No easy exit from the dopamine loop. YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, even when I only mean to watch one, are patterns that make my brain lose time so incredibly easy. I don't remember what I was looking at this morning in bed on social media, and I'm gonna be on there again tonight, probably. People all over report getting their parents and grandparents their first phone and see them not used to the instant gratification we've built a tolerance to. They become addicted to watching 5 hours of Reddit posts read by podcasters clipped to Instagram and reposted to Facebook. Check out this clip of Albo talking about the ban.
Social media can be a bit overwhelming for all of us, but for our kids it can cause real harm. And that's why from this week we're banning social media accounts for those under 16. It will mean more time for children to learn, grow and just be kids.
It's interesting because he clearly starts by saying this kind of overwhelming overstimulation becoming the norm is bad, that it's bad for young minds, which I completely agree with, but this fast disguised as regulation isn't doing anything about any of those problems. It isn't addressing the addiction that every under 16-year-old has been given, that they just got simultaneously taken away from them. The only thing it is doing is actively giving more of our data to data harvesters and ad companies to give us targeted addictive posts with more of our real-life identity being made into data, including just asking for photos of our ID. And I don't care if they won't store it or if the government isn't involved in that, because you know what's going to happen, right? Infinite scrolling loops like this still exist after this ban. Young girls are just going to switch to scrolling on Pinterest for 4 hours instead of Instagram, and they're going to give themselves the exact same body issue problems that the proponents of this ban cite as a main concern. Does this protect from online radicalization? I can see why one would hope getting children off social media could prevent the echo chamber of radicalization, but again, this is something that could be addressed by proper regulation, but isn't by a blanket ban. Direct social media feeds is only one part of the radicalization problem. The prevailing societal attitudes that lead to this radicalization are another, and the misinformation content mills on places like YouTube Shorts are just as popular. Boys without social media accounts can still watch Andrew Tate's latest speech on YouTube by Googling for it. They can still find out through biased news sources some confirmation bias enforcing stories. This ban isn't going to start teaching kids critical thinking skills at a young age so they can be more skeptical of these radicalization pipelines when they encounter one. They're just not going to be used to it when they do encounter one. It's just going to calcify the diehards and turn those who still have access to these social media posts into real-life proselytizers for real-life boys who don't know any better. Someone radicalized into Islamophobia online isn't going to have a hard time turning that into a school-friendly opinion when my high school yearly had a visit from the fucking military to talk about how girl-boss and feminist it is to kill Muslim women. But honestly, radicalization pipelines don't even need to adapt to analog. The social media ban doesn't affect radicalization pipeline mainstay 4chan, one of the most popular entry points for radicalization. Radicalization into misogyny, into insultum, fascism, nationalism, and for the girls who know, body image problems. This is such a major fucking oversight considering they banned Reddit and not 4chan. Like, it makes some sense, because the whole ban is predicated on account creation, which 4chan doesn't have. But it absolutely denudes the idea that this shit is going to protect from radicalization or misinformation. I mean, say what you want about Reddit, but there's just as much tech support and real discussion of historical fact on there as there are pro-military posts in r/trans and links to MAGA rabbit holes. Radicalization doesn't even need to just be political either. I'd consider it a subset of this issue to talk about body image problems given by social media, which, as I mentioned before, is still going to be huge with Pinterest unaffected. I'd consider it another subset to talk about gambling ads and gambling aimed at children, an industry which our current government is deeply in the pockets of, so no wonder it goes unaddressed. Anti-recovery mental illness support is another that I think kids will be affected by and not know how to reach out about. Initial support for the ban from retro early internet fans, excited to see young people return to the internet forum era, forget that has an RSS feed. Radicalization into hate is a real-life problem because hate is a real-life problem. Internet radicalization doesn't stay on the internet because society isn't on the internet. It's a societal problem that we've set some people up to believe a lie they see on the internet. Social media like Reddit and diverse perspectives from the people I met on role-playing groups made a younger me realize what I'd been taught about a lot of the world was wrong. Made me aware of my biases and led me to the works of history's greatest thinkers. A well-educated child, or hell, a well-educated person in general with a moral backbone, who's been preemptively taught the reasons misogyny and racism are bad instead of being told they're just not relevant to modern society, isn't going to be played like a fiddle by hacks and pundits on the internet. When I first saw Ben Shapiro own someone, I assumed it wouldn't be on the internet with all these views if it was wrong. I believed everything he said because I was like 8 and stupid. But when I actually looked up what he was saying to learn more, I realized he didn't know what he was saying and my mind was blown that I'd been tricked. Not everyone was like that, and I was lucky to see him say something stupid instead of stupid but convincing on the first try. Not everyone is like that, and frankly, I'm not usually like that. Seeing something wrong online but having already discussed why it's wrong with your teacher would be a powerful tool against radicalization. Simply banning one of the many avenues into radicalization isn't, especially when what you're banning is the diverse perspectives, both positive and negative, on Reddit or YouTube, and not fucking 4chan. Does the social media ban protect kids against anxiety and depression? For reasons that'll become clear later, here's an excerpt from Nature Journal article by Candice Odgers reviewing some irrelevant book called The Anxious Generation, written by Jonathan Haidt. Haidt supplies graphs throughout the book showing that digital technology use and adolescent mental health problems are rising together. On the first day of the graduate statistics class I teach, I draw similar lines on a board that seem to connect two disparate phenomena and ask the students what they think is happening. Within minutes, the students usually begin telling elaborate stories about how the two phenomena are related, even describing how one could cause the other. The plots presented throughout this book will be useful in teaching my students the fundamental of causal inference and how to avoid making up stories by simply looking at trend lines. Hundreds of researchers, myself included, have searched for the kind of large effects suggested by Haidt. Our efforts have produced a mix of no, small, and mixed associations. Most data are correlative. When associations over time are found, they suggest not that social media use predicts or causes depression, but that young people who already have mental health problems use such platforms more often or in different ways from their healthy peers. These are not just our data or my opinion. Several meta-analyses and systematic reviews converge on the same message. An analysis done in 72 countries shows no consistent or measurable associations between well-being and the rollout of social media globally. Moreover, findings from the Adolescent Brain Cognitive Development Study, the largest long-term study of adolescent brain development in the United States, has found no evidence of drastic changes associated with digital technology use. Haidt, a social psychologist at the New York University, is a gifted storyteller, but his tale is currently one searching for evidence. Does the social media ban protect from cyberbullying? The popular narrative of this ban is that it's pushed by the grieving parents of children lost to suicide.
And the PM has launched a world-first ban on social media for under-16s in Sydney, surrounded by families who've lost children to suicide.
But looking at the history of the bill and the way it manifested, that truly isn't what's going on. It doesn't protect against any of the parts of cyberbullying that affected me or anyone I know the most. I know for a fact that it's not going to stop revenge porn, doxing, Google Drives, and Dropbox links full of your personal stuff. It doesn't stop phishing attempts or WhatsApp groups made to harass you, or exclusion from every part of your school's social life. It doesn't stop video game griefing. Here's an excerpt from a Guardian article by a parent. My 15-year-old daughter is very distressed as she is about to lose her social connections. All her 14 to 15-year-old friends have been age-verified as 18 by Snapchat, but she has been identified as under 16, so her friends will keep using Snapchat to talk and organize social events, and she will be left out. I mean, I said before it was ineffective, but in this case it's literally broken. Is it protection from cyberbullying to have to make teary-eyed tweets to your artist friends on your Twitter art account that you won't be able to post or talk to them anymore? Is it protection from cyberbullying to be born in December and be the last person in your whole school year to get on social media? Is it protection from cyberbullying for someone in poverty who does art commissions to get extra lunch money and save up for a tablet one day to no longer have their income or any of their professional connections? The better question too is, does this protect from regular bullying? It fucking doesn't. I got bullied relentlessly in school and nobody did anything because autistic people look scary and inhuman and look like they shouldn't be trusted, lacking interiority to people. Finding a space with other disabled and autistic people online gave me my first friends. I never followed a single classmate on Instagram because I didn't get it until adulthood. Same for every other platform simply because I had nobody to add on there. I just used Discord. I simply wasn't involved nor had the option of being involved in the social space on or offline because of that exclusion, and returning teen social spaces from social media to the real world isn't going to help victims of bullying. It's going to rob them of what community they did have with other victims, or other disabled people, or other of whatever minority they might be, and force them to interact with their tormentors or lose their minds from having no friends. And again I ask, for what? No joke. While researching, I got jump scared by realizing the tabloid I was reading was quoting one of my own former teachers, talking about how getting off social media with all its rumors and whatnot would preserve childhood innocence. That's what it's about, isn't it? The veneer of childhood innocence. The teacher saying this didn't seem to give a fuck about my innocence when I was being bullied to suicidality at their school. The adage for cyberbullying by people who refuse to care has been, just get off the computer. An uncaring, unknowledgeable way of saying it's your own fault for being bullied by teachers and parents who don't care about what you're going through on or offline. And just log off is now the official stance of the government. They would rather children appear innocent than fix the problem. Because now, if somebody does continue to be cyberbullied on social media, despite the ban, exactly like saying just log off, they can continue to blame victims. You're not supposed to be on there, you're too young. So, what the fuck does this policy do? Does it protect from misinformation? No. Google and its stupid AI is just as laden with misinformation as ever, and this doesn't stop people from scrolling YouTube shorts and getting told Amelia Earhart disappeared into the South Pole cave that leads to the Hollow Earth. Does it protect data privacy? No, it just gets worse. Does it protect from clout culture and status? No. A brand new in-group of those who manage to sneak their way onto social media is going to have social currency over those who don't. Will it protect from graphic content at least? No. Social media is so unregulated that graphic content of dead animals still exists on YouTube Kids. We need social media regulation, not a great big dead dove sign over the entire thing. What are the consequences? Of course, you think through the potential repercussions of any move like this, Malinowska says, but when you are talking about protecting young people, all other considerations become secondary. The consequences of this ban is worsening abuse, reduced avenues of escape for abuse victims, increased punishment for grooming victims, data harvesting for adults living completely within the law, discrimination by the AI face analyzers based on racially skewed training data, isolating vulnerable teenagers and pushing children into the unregulated corners of the internet, turning an entire generation cold turkey on their primary addiction without the language to communicate what they feel or the resources to cope with the sudden withdrawal, increase surveillance on everybody, and reduce demand for true social media regulation. Here's what would happen if I was a teenager during all this, from somebody who is now 21 going on 22. If I were a teenager during this, I would lose my political education on topics like Indigenous and Union history and would just be taught things by my Catholic history teacher based on what they wanted to teach. I'd lose most of my interests with the loss of fandom spaces and curating a feed of subreddits. I was really into Reddit as a teenager, but not anymore. I'd have never had a community as an amateur animator from 9 to 12 years old with kind hobbyist adults giving me tips to improve. And not one of them ever grooming me, by the way. Every single one of my friends were all on Discord, and mostly Americans at the time, so my exclusion would just get worse under this ban. My academics would get worse without an interest in history and science that I discovered through internet, not class. I'd know one single other autistic person, like maximum, and be deprived of community and education of my rights as a disabled person that I was never taught by ableist society in a Catholic school. I'd have never met the first trans woman I ever met, who was the most amazing person ever. I'd have never met my long-term boyfriend of 3 years, if I hadn't met him back when I was 15 on a homeschooling Discord, or my previous boyfriend, who I met on a Discord for alternative and queer people in Sydney that was my only real-life friend group for my teen years. I never would have made this YouTube channel. But when you were talking about protecting young people, all other considerations become secondary. All these considerations are secondary to protecting the platonic ideal of a cyberbullied child instead of the reality, as imagined by a lawyer in South Australia who felt pity after reading a book not by a victim of bullying in Australia, but by the word of a psychologist in America who Oprah loves, but all his contemporaries think are fucking dangerous. That Nature article I read earlier, the one about the skewed data about mental health, that was from a review of this aforementioned book. Quoting again from Odgers, 2 things need to be said after reading The Anxious Generation. First, this book is going to sell a lot of copies because Jonathan Haidt is telling a scary story about children's development that many parents are primed to believe. Second, the book's repeated suggestion that digital technologies are rewiring our children's brains and causing an epidemic of mental illness is not supported by science. Worse, the bold proposal that social media is to blame might distract us from effectively responding to the real causes of the current mental health crisis in young people. This is preamble to the next half of this video, a quick history of how we got this first draft of legislation, but in short, not because it was useful or needed, but because it's convenient to a lot of people in a lot of ways, with the overarching reason being political power. After South Australian Premier Peter Malinowskis' wife turned to him while reading Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation and told him to do something about this mental illness thing she just heard of for the first time, he threw a summit to discuss, alongside Chris Minns. At this summit was Frances Haugen, a whistleblower who has spoken out against Facebook for intentionally radicalizing its users towards hate and providing a huge wealth of documents proving it. Proving Facebook knows about it and profits from it, and proving Facebook consistently prioritizes making money over any conflict of interest. This is good. We like Frances. Hogan was against the ban, describing it as a bumper sticker solution, but the South Australian government and New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, a man I personally watched pretend to volunteer at a polling place in Parramatta, and he just posed for photos holding all the flyers, and then when everyone took the photos he handed it to some woman and he fucking left. And those two aren't really interested in alternative solutions or reconsidering. They knew what they wanted to do to appease that one guy's wife, so they tried to stop Hogan from speaking, as shown in emails obtained through an FOI request. According to newsouthwales.gov, the summit was a world first too. What fucking isn't? Remember the dodgy science backing this whole thing up that was discredited in the Nature review that I talked about at the start? Here's Malinowskis' opening line at the summit. The results are in, and the science is settled. He reportedly said at the opening of the summit. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? So, we're just lying? We're just lying.
But this isn't an option anymore. The results are in. The science is settled.
They are just lying. So, we're just lying here? They're just lying here. They're allowed to lie? They're just lying. While Hogan did get to deliver her keynote speech despite reservations by the government,
please welcome Frances Haugen.
Hello.
Jonathan Haidt, the author of the book, got to give a video speech in one of the best time slots. They don't have the second part. Hold on, everybody. Oh, no, that's not it. Where's no? Okay. Well, I don't know how to find them. Department of the Premier in the Cabinet, southaustralia.gov.au. Here's the live stream, but why even watch the live stream when there's a highlights, or just down here, a direct link to just watch Jonathan Haidt's address in full.
Thank you for leading the way in cleaning up the mess that America made for the world.
Why give this American author such a leg up? Here's news site Crikey describing the FOI'd emails. While discussing the video, Malinowskis' office made the purpose of the social media summit clear. The summit was being held with the intent of building momentum and support for national legislation to enforce a minimum age for access to social media, wrote Malinowskis' senior advisor, Kat Blakey, in an email to Haidt. The intent of building momentum and support for national legislation. Not to discuss whether it's a good idea or not, to build momentum to push it through as fast as possible. This was never a debate. This was a manufactured issue forced through by not giving consideration to any opposition, even as early in this issue as July 2024, when the summit was only just announced. It had been 4 months since the release of Haidt's book, with no time to consider it further or let the experts discuss or debunk the book apart from this one article in Nature. It was at this point that the ban went national.
Got some breaking news on this front.
Well, Kieran, Sky News can reveal that the opposition has now promised to pass this social media ban for under 16. The opposition leader, Peter Dutton, wrote to Anthony Albanese offering that not only do they want to see this legislation introduced to the Parliament, you can see the letter there, but they also are promising that it should become law as well, saying that they will help the government.
After South Australia, it became a Liberal talking point, and within months, a Labor talking point to take an election difference off the table and make campaigning easier, because instead of a democracy where you get to vote on what issues you prefer, such as maybe not experimenting on kids nationwide, it's easier to just adopt your opposition's dumbfuck policies so you don't need to debate them. Of course, it's not just the major parties scoring a talking point. As we can see, Labor only adopted this out of convenience, and the premiers just did it for political points in the name. A huge source of lobbying money were AI and age verification companies who'd get huge payouts from this. A UK firm got given $22.5 million to run a trial on whether the technology was ready or not. It wasn't. And it was a huge win for News Corp, who have been hemorrhaging their users to social media, not just children growing up without an interest in television and dailymail.com, but aging users switching to getting their unlicensed conspiracy theories from Facebook, instead of their properly licensed Murdoch conspiracy theories. Apart from just monopolizing the information sector and creating new lifelong Murdoch heads in the latest generation, let me quote from Anton Issa. Academics and experts advised against the ban, but the Albanese government acted precipitously in the face of a lobbying campaign by the Murdoch press, Dr. Monique Ryan, the member for Kooyong, told Deep Cut. Not only have tech giants eroded News Corp's dominance, they've eaten into its bottom line. In the last financial year, the company saw revenues in its global news media division fall by $100 million, or 4% compared to previous year. News Corp blamed this fall partly on lowering advertising revenues and lower circulation and subscription revenues. The main culprit? Tech giants. News Corp competes directly with social media platforms for advertising dollars, so they seem to think anything that weakens the power of tech companies can benefit traditional media owners, Dr. Ty Nielsen, senior lecturer in the media at Macquarie University, said. Enter the social media ban, which Nielsen says is News Corp's attempts to claw back some of their lost advertising revenue. Is it really any surprise the entire Murdoch press started their Let There Be Kids campaign to advocate for the ban, when it was only March 2024 that Facebook stopped paying News Corp a $70 million a year stipend for permission to use their news? Obviously losing that, they wanted to claw back something from Facebook.
It's a policy that is widely applauded by parents. I think many people forget that this was actually a policy first announced by Peter Dutton.
It was a Peter Dutton policy around protecting Australian children.
Look, today too, that announcement by the Prime Minister that he will move on new national laws to restrict the use of social media by Australian children. Now, it's a good move. It's a worthy move. It's something that Peter Dutton's already committed to.
World first.
To roll out a world first. And I believe it will help kids like me to grow up healthier, safer, kinder.
But, News Corp wasn't the only person pushing this. The other major contributor to lobbying public perception was the 36 Months campaign. 36 months referencing the extra 3 years in raising the age limit from 13 to 16. Now, the 36 Months campaign was run by the radio station Nova. So Nova, if we go and we click over here, is run by Nova Entertainment. And okay, we'll just go click on that. Oh, okay. So this entire thing was an astroturf. The public owned... It's gotten really red in here because the sun just came out from behind a cloud and then it hits my neighbor's house and it bounces and the color of his bricks makes it red. She's red for an amazing reason. What's with the rush, buddy? I've talked about how rushed it is, but you don't even fucking know. The public only had 1 day to submit letters to a Senate inquiry. I went through a few of these public letters to the government and I couldn't find any that disagreed. I didn't read too many. Didn't read all of them. But of the ones I read, every one of them was like, this is a terrible fucking idea. And as well as that, all of them said the consultation period is weirdly short. Even this terrible fucking unedited letter by the Victorian Property Owners Association accusing the government of being secretly communist with its woke social media ban is against the ban. And not only against it, it ends by saying they need more than 1 fucking day to submit letters for public inquiry. Here's the UNICEF letter concerning human rights. Okay, and what is the number 1 point on here? Short consultation period. Fucking hell, guys. Number 2 implicates the legislation as having the potential to deny children their human rights. Point 3 hammers home that this legislation can make several classes of children's life worse. Point 4 is worried about data harvesting. And point 5 remains unconvinced of the enforceability of an age ban to begin with. Oh my goodness. The same problems have been entirely evident with this bill from day one and have been systematically ignored by a government interested in mitigating an election issue that was given to the Liberal Party by the Murdoch News because of its popularity with a heavily disputed psychologist that is only being talked about right now because it was the interest of an unelected public figure, some politician's wife. Who's the target audience of this bill? The cloud went away and now it's really dark.
Make the most of the school holidays coming up, rather than spending it scrolling on your phone. Start a new sport, learn a new instrument, or read that book that's been sitting there on your shelf for some time. And importantly, spend quality time with your friends and your family, face to face.
This fucking guy has the goal to pass this shit of a policy without any research behind it, and then tell kids to go read a book? You go read a book. Let's imagine a few people who might be affected by this ban. Okay, so character number 1 is Little Timmy, or Little Timmy. Little Timmy lives rurally and is about a 4-hour bike ride from his friends. Albo says to Little Timmy, go spend time with your friends. Here's another one. Little Joseph, he's very bullied in school, he has a domestic violence relationship with his family. Albo says to Little Joseph, why don't you spend more face-to-face time with your family? Oh, Gucci, rather than being on your damn phone all the time, you little scamp. I know that Albo doesn't sound like that, I know he's more Italian. To a gay person in the closet surrounded by homophobia in their real world, Albo doesn't promise to research policies that reduce the culture of homophobia in the country. He tells you to get your nose out of your phone. Get my nose out of the phone this holiday, Albo? What if my phone is my holiday, you twat? Stick to what you're good at, Albo. Doing genocide, apparently. To those in poverty, he says take music lessons, buy and pay for classes to learn an instrument, and don't you dare go on music Twitter. To the disabled, he says learn a sport. To those with social disabilities, he says go make friends. To those inside their whole lives, he believes it's easy to just go outside and start hanging out, despite loitering policies getting way tighter. When I was a teenager, the main out-of-school activity I did with a friend was that we would go to parks and we'd go on the swings and the climbing equipment and stuff. And sometimes, if we were feeling special, we would go to a gas station and we would buy one of the special cans of Coke that they only sold in the gas station that was extra tall. A few times maybe we considered taking a bus and trying to go to Putt-Putt, but we never did because it was just money that we didn't want to spend. There was no club that I could go to outside of school with my one friend who lived down the street, went to a different school, and isn't friends with me anymore. What I mean by all this isn't literally that Albo is saying this. He's not literally squeezing Little Timmy's cheeks, but that the advice he's giving is betraying the beating heart of this issue. The platonic ideal of a child to these fucking people is a non-racialized, middle-class, able-bodied, well-liked socially and socially sufficient child, not living rurally, without social deficiencies or abuse, and who doesn't require social media for money, who has some degree of transport and spending money. He doesn't consider what it feels like to be gay and closeted with nobody to talk to, or to be transgender but not even know that word exists, because without social media, your only understanding of it, as a concept, is a punchline in Ace Ventura. He doesn't know what it feels like to be too scared of your embarrassing problem, or too scared to ask your parents for something that you skip doctor's appointments. He must genuinely assume anybody suffering from a mental illness is going to feel safe enough asking their parents, no matter how scared they are, to visit a support group and meet like-minded kids. Take a look at this video.
It's a big change, and we're the first country in the world to give it a crack. But it really matters. We know being a parent today comes with a whole new set of challenges. Algorithms, endless feeds and pressures no generation before has had to deal with. Today's change is about supporting you to keep your children safe online. Putting the responsibility right where it belongs, on the social media giants, not on parents. By banning social media for those under 16, we're giving children a childhood and parents more peace of mind.
In this video, who does he address? It's not kids. It's not the source of the ban. It's the true target for this policy. It's parents. It's giving you the appearance that your child is innocent, your child is fulfilled, letting you always know what's going on with them, letting you feel in control. The middle-class anxieties about a nebulous and distant concept of cyberbullying can be availed by just depriving your children. And for every concept I've laid above, doing so as an Indigenous person is even harder with the intersecting challenges that come with spotty internet access in rural areas, exclusion from education and cultural programs being amplified, the heightened fear and intergenerational trauma of overreach and trust concerns. Instead of acknowledging this, they lit their stupid monuments the colours of the colony to celebrate. And now we have France on their way to copy our world-first draft. Okay, oui, bonjour. Here's my suggestions for real social media regulation. And again, these are just the first ideas I had in a room. I haven't consulted experts, I haven't asked people, I just asked people or done a feasibility study or talked to the experts about this. These are the first ideas echoing in a room, ideas they should have thought of if they actually wanted to address this challenge, which they don't. Run case studies and tests, have more than one idea, regulate what makes social media addictive, do more studies about grey matter being affected by short-form content and find a way to regulate that punishes companies and not people. Create a criminal offense for these companies purposely engineering the next evil thing, something like corporate manufacturing of a consumer demand leading to worse outcome, I don't fucking know. So that even if it takes you a few years to prove that they broke that law, there's legal precedent for charging them and they might not do it. Regulate gambling better. Ban gambling ads. Run a study on what content is being shown to the average new user on several large platforms, because YouTube and Twitter are definitely giving you right-wing leaning content when they don't know anything about you and it pushes you into a web. Regulate things to make social media less of an echo chamber. Like, things can be curated for you, but less targeted with specific purposes. Regulate out purposely making people angry for their engagement. Protect children offline just as much. Fund more online chat support for children with the power to refer out, instead of just talking for an hour and saying bye-bye. Have social workers that don't work for the school in schools alongside school counselors. Have more safe spots for children online even if the government needs to host them that are highly regulated that prevents users from being lured off platform. Don't open your consultation for a single day. Open it for, a year. Listen to experts. Increase cultural aggression towards homophobia. Root it out like a fucking plague. Get rid of fucking dads telling their kids, oh, you can't do that, it's a fucking sissy thing. And put them in jail, maybe. I don't know. If I was Albo, I'd put them in jail. Proper, evidence-backed internet safety courses updated yearly that respect kids' intelligence and give them a non-punitive space to talk about what's going on for them. Have teachers be interested in what kids are doing online every few months, even when it's not dangerous, because it's just cool to tell someone if you found a new hobby community or a new YouTuber you like, and a genuine interest will help a teacher keep their finger on the pulse of these children. And it'll create a safe space to talk about if something's going wrong, if you saw graphic content that upset you, or if someone is stalking you. And that kind of safe space, you won't be punished for saying something, you'll be helped. If you're being groomed, you have a precedent of having told your teacher about what's been going on in the internet. Oh, I made this new friend recently. You can say, well, things aren't going so well with my friend. They make me feel uncomfortable, but I feel like they're gonna kill themselves if they leave me. So what should I do, teacher? And the teacher is like, don't even worry about it. I know exactly what to do because this exact thing happened to me when I was a teenager back in 2013. Do better anti-bullying, do a whole commission if you have to, try to regulate reduced reliance on social media for employment, similar to the right to disconnect established by the Fair Work Ombuds. Create punishments for corporations stalking your private life and your social medias to find out if you're closeted when hiring you. Challenge big business in your regulation instead of the users. Push anti-addictive legislation. Regulate out infinite scrolling. Create an incentive structure for platforms to introduce more exit points where you're asked if you want to keep scrolling or not. Do you want to keep watching the video? You can stop if you want. I don't mind. I've only got one more sentence in my script. So those are my ideas. For fun, here is the letter from the Victorian Property Owners Association. It's really fucking dumb. So I'm just on the parliamentary business submission page for letter responses to the social media ban proposition. So it's got a bunch of different organizations' responses to things. And you can see they've got a bunch of different stuff. Here's the Premier. Here's X. I imagine all of Twitter. Just a bunch of things. But I was looking for UNICEF specifically to see what they had to say. And as you know, I read out the UNICEF letter in the video, but I also saw the Property Owners Association of Victoria, and that stood out to me. So here is the letter sent by the Property Owners Association of Victoria to the government. We oppose this proposal to have social media being used to identify the identities of users for the benefit of the government against the interest of the public's rights to the freedoms that we have inherited and intend to pass on to our descendants. In this Australia that our ancestors fought and died for, we have no doubt, in capitals, that this particular part of the raft of communist proposals from the government is designed to destroy our rights, to defend our other property rights. I guess when everything you have is a nail, all your property rights are hammers. We concur with Tony Nikolic writing, end of sentence, in double space The Spectator Australia 21 November 2024. And then they quote it, but they don't put quotes around it. I think this bit is what the quote is, and the rest of them going back to them. The duty of care that you owe to the public is to prosecute wrongdoers, not to ban access by children to social media like YouTube and others, but to prosecute the pornography and the pedophiles. Recently, a Vic Gov enquiry was told, and you're writing a letter to the government, you don't have to Vic Gov it. Recently, the Victorian government enquiry was told that farmers were wanting the video and content obtained illegally by trespass to be censored. In a double-space-like manner, the action carried out by X on, capitalized for some reason, its platforms is to add community notes. That is the way that the mad bill should have been carried forwards. No comma here. This is a similar attempt at censorship of the free press that caused the Industrial Revolution and the strengthening of Western civilization. So that sounds like a good thing. But without a free media, we will fall into a backwards, woke country that is not Australia anymore. And also, please extend the submission time, which is a valid request and is also what UNICEF said. So these guys seem like an intellectual bastion.